Hi, everybody, and welcome back to episode 6 of our webinar, the last webinar in the series. And today we're going to be talking around future-proofing your calls, AI, and the evolution of teams, specifically talking around Copilot. Today I've got a very special guest with me. We've got Michael Boggia. You'd like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Good to be here. So I'm Michael Boggia. I'm the head of LoopUp's North American sales and account management team. So my responsibility is helping to onboard new customers and then look after those customers, many of whom are talking about Copilot. So very happy to be on this one.
Yeah, we can't forget AI evangelist and Copilot, Copilot answerer. That's
Yeah,
definitely you, Michael.
it absolutely is.
I know you've been
Enthusiast.
around. Yeah, enthusiast is definitely the right word. I know you've been around, hot on the heels as soon as Microsoft released, some information around Copilot or AI in general. You're really jumping on top of that. So it's really good to see. Um, I think it's very a good place to start for us if we start with, what is Copilot? I'm sure, if anybody's watched Ignite, you've had, Copilot thrown in front of you. It dominated um, a lot of the headlines and a lot of the information coming out of Microsoft Ignite this year. Now that Ignite's over, we're kind of settling down a little bit, and we're starting to understand, what Copilot is a little bit more. What Copilot is it's Microsoft's version of AI. They're using OpenAI on the back end, and it's effectively connecting all of your data that's being stored in Microsoft 365 and surfacing that in applications such as PowerPoint, Excel, Word, you know, so you're able to do things directly with your data and use those AI models to be able to generate responses and um, generate uh, data directly through Copilot itself. So one section that we'll talk about today is how it's going to help organizations. You, Michael, you deal with a lot of organizations around the world. I'm sure they've been asking you about Copilot and what that means for them. If I just hit on just a little couple of things around, what it's going to do for those, and you can, agree and throw some points in there as well.
Yep.
Um, I think one key thing is it's going to be available across that whole Office suite.
Yeah.
So whether it's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, M365 chat, so a bot you can physically chat with, and then Teams itself. So whether that be meetings, calls, any sort of Teams, however, any way that you're interacting with Teams, Copilot's going to be there and be able to help. Some of the types of things as well you're going to be able to do with Copilot, they kind of fall into these categories. There's the catch up category or the summarization, being able to ask Copilot what went on in that meeting, or, kind of so you don't have to take notes. You're able to get information condensed and given to you in a much more condensed way. You're also able to create as well. So you can ask Copilot directly, based on this information, can you create me a proposal? Can you create me a presentation? And it's going to take that and create, the PowerPoint or the Word document off the back of that. And then the last bucket that it's going to fall into is asking itself. So if you don't know something, you can, go to Copilot itself. Let's take something like an Excel Copilot now. The amount of times I've gone to Google and Googled how to do the VLOOKUP, instead of just learning it and
Yeah.
being able to do it, I'll just keep going back to Google and Googling the same thing. With Copilot, you're able to just use that natural language to ask it, or ask it, how can I do this? And it be able to do it for you directly in the document.
Yeah.
I know one key thing for us, and especially you, Michael, is Teams Phone. So you
Yeah.
have a lot of conversations around Teams Phone itself. What kind of functionalities are going to be available with Copilot in Teams Phone?
Yeah, I mean, really, all of my conversations are around Teams Phone, naturally, based on the service we provide. I'm glad you mentioned those three buckets, though, because I think a lot of press is given to the ask bucket, right? ChatGPT asking questions with sort of natural language. But I think the catch up and create buckets are perhaps more powerful when you think about Teams meetings and Teams phone. So I think that the thing that I'm discussing a lot is real time summarization. So you're on a live
Mhm.
call and it might be an hour long, super detailed, covering lots of different topics. Copilot can summarize certain sections in real time so that you're able to sort of catch up on what's been said and maybe guide the call towards more productive next steps.
Yeah.
The idea of asking Copilot questions directly within a meeting or a
Mm.
call is very powerful. I know a lot of people are excited about that, and even more granularly. I don't know if that's a word, but really into the weeds in the detail. What happens when I'm transferring a call? Can I give that person a summary of what's been said so that they receive that call in a really powerful position? I know that's something that's available, isn't it? Sort of seems like a really important feature.
Yeah, especially for collaboration as well.
Yeah,
You know, let's say you're in a client meeting that has gone quite technical,
yeah,
and you're like, I'd like to bring a consultant into this, or I'd
yeah,
like to escalate this a little bit further. Instead of you having to reach out over chat
yeah,
and try and remember,
yeah,
"Oh, what was that question that was said," or maybe you ask it in a slightly different way. You can kind of ask for a quick summary and then paste that directly into the person that you want to transfer or drag into that call with you,
yeah.
and they're given a great summarization of what's been asked, and how they'll be able to help. That's collaboration 2.0. That's passing that information up very quickly.
Yeah, it is. It is collaboration 2.0. I think we'll probably cover this a bit later on, but that sort of truth in data. If you're on loads of calls every day and there's action items on all of those calls, and if you think about the way we work, if I have to pass pretty detailed information on to you, things can get lost in
Yeah.
translation. Notes can be incomplete, and this really guarantees that the truth is going to be in that information that's passed within a company. So it's really powerful, and people are really excited about what it can achieve more than just what you can ask it.
Yeah, yeah. I think one key thing as well in there is, I've seen in demos and such from Ignite of being able to do things like list unanswered questions. So it's going to be able to understand. You know, I wasn't quite able to answer that question. So let's say as you're talking, you say, "Leave that with me. I'll take that back,
Yeah,
and I'll try and get you an answer."
yeah,
Uh, Copilot's going to be able to know that you weren't able to answer that straight away. So instead of having to make a note, you can ask for those, what questions didn't I answer? And then it will give that back to you
yeah.
in a meaningful way.
Yeah, it's great for
Uh,
that. It's increasing the value of the interaction at the end of the day. More answers are going to be provided. People are going to leave these calls achieving what they hope for. So it's
Yeah. I think one key thing that you mentioned to me as well previously was around some potential security concerns that have been raised from customers. Could we just go into a little bit more on that?
yeah. Well, I think it feels like a part of every conversation. They are fresh off the back of Ignite, super excited about the capabilities, have loads of questions, but then the end of the question is always, what does this mean for security? Is this call being recorded? Is there a transcription? It seems to be a little bit of a gray area right now. Obviously Microsoft are always looking through the lens of security, but it is a little bit
Yeah.
unclear. They didn't really nail it at Ignite, how this sort of works.
Yeah, and from a technical point of view, that's kind of what we're seeing as well.
Yeah,
It's not necessarily straight up call recording.
yeah,
It's transcription.
yeah,
But it's gotta for that transcription to happen, it's gotta be, recorded somewhere and fed into something for it to be able to be used, via Copilot. I think the only thing we can do is hopefully Microsoft will give us some more in-depth information around what does that mean around things like you mentioned consent for other
mm,
parties. Do we have to put a banner at the top of every single meeting that Copilot's involved in? That sort of thing. And a little bit of spoilers, but with Copilot being GA now, I think we're going to start to see that information
yeah.
surface an awful lot more.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think as well, because this is real time summarization, it isn't the same as something being recorded that you're dipping back into. It's
Yeah.
available to you while that interaction's happening and then goes away. I think that gives a lot of people peace of mind. It isn't the same as a policy based recording requirement or even a regular based,
Hmm.
regular click to record function. So, but I agree, as people start using this and providing feedback, I think the information will surface more clearly.
Yeah. Uh, just before we move on, one thing that's, I mean, is especially, good for us. Um, all of these Copilot, features that we're talking about now, they're available whether you're in a peer-to-peer call, whether you're in a PSTN call as well. So, from a Teams phone aspect, no matter how you're making calls, you're going to be able to leverage these Copilot capabilities directly in your Teams phone.
Yeah, that's the critically important thing for us and why we're super excited about it.
Yeah, 100%. I know as well. There was one thing that we've spoke about in the past, which I think you really hit the nail on the head with, and this is the 3 chapters of Teams Phone. I know we've had conversations with customers directly about this. So if we can just have a little chat around that, I think it'd be good.
Yeah, well, I think there were 2 chapters prior to Copilot being available in Teams Phone for PSTN. You know, just to give a little bit of background, LoopUp's been in the Microsoft voice space, as you well know, since 2010. I've actually been at LoopUp
Yeah,
since 2011. So, whatever the Microsoft vehicle of the day has been, OCS, LCS, Link, Skype, we've been bringing voice services into those platforms. And obviously, 2017 marked the introduction of Teams, and since then, I do think there have been 3 chapters of Teams Phone. If you think about 2017, 18, 19, really up to COVID, if you were to compare the Teams phone system with a Cisco phone system, Avaya, Mitel, and any traditional phone system, a strong argument could be made that there wasn't quite feature parity. It was certainly innovative. You could certainly do most things. But if you are
yeah,
a large international organization, you're probably going to have to part company with some features. So the sort of pre-COVID chapter is not quite feature parity. And then obviously COVID happened, mass remote work, demand for Teams itself just skyrocketed. And in turn, demand for Teams Phone skyrocketed. So Microsoft invested a lot of time, energy, and money into gaining feature parity. If you think about SIP Gateway, all the feature releases that came out during COVID, it's safe to say that for a while now, it has had the same set of features or powers as a traditional phone system, which is very exciting. But the real excitement lies in the chapter we're just entering. Thanks to Copilot, thanks to some, again, more recent Ignite announced features, you could argue that now Teams Phone has feature superiority. AI in
yeah,
Teams Phone means a phone call is going to look different to what it looked like before. It's going to be much more useful, much more powerful. So it's fun to sort of walk into this next chapter with Microsoft and see the amount of investment they're making. And it's going to, speaking from an account management perspective, all of our customers are really, really excited about that because the phone has sort of found a new place within the collaboration ecosystem. You know, pre-COVID, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you might reach for the phone first. Now you might reach for the phone second or third, but that doesn't mean that
yeah.
interaction is any less important. You need to be reachable at any time. And the nice thing now is that when you are reachable, you can have a really, really good experience. You're going to answer more questions, get to resolutions much faster. So yeah, the third chapter is going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And, with that, second chapter that you mentioned, the feature parity chapter of rapid, feature releases from Microsoft. You mentioned the SIP gateway. You know, we're still seeing that compounded
Yeah,
now. With extra functionality being added into there as well.
exactly.
So I can only imagine, with Copilot as we've stepped into this chapter 3, as you mentioned it. You know, what features and capabilities are going to come along with that.
Yeah, we're just getting started, to be honest. That's the sense I got from Ignite. I thought it was the best Ignite ever. It was just, there was so much information. We're still catching our breath from it. But that's a really good point, because it does feel like, even in the wake of all of these announcements, it's just the beginning. It's going to ramp up
Yeah.
from here. And, despite our creative minds, I think we're probably not going to even know what it's going to look like even a year down the line. So it's exciting time.
100%. I just wanted to take a little time now to mention or to talk through like a real world scenario,
Hmm.
because when you talk or you watch videos around Copilot, they tend to be quite segmented.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Copilot in Excel. Let's talk about Copilot in Teams. But I want to kind of talk through with you, Michael, what a real world scenario could potentially look like, for someone using Copilot. Let's take someone like yourself, which has, plenty of calls with customers. Um, let's say you were in that call with a customer with Copilot, and like you mentioned before, very in-depth call where there's lots of notes needing to be taken or key information that needs to be extracted. With Copilot, during that call, you can ask for summarizations, or at the end of that call, ask for that key information that the customer asked for. And then with Copilot, you're able to take that out and create a templated proposal. So, you can take that information that you gained from that call and ask Copilot to create you a Word proposal based on that information. So you're going from the summarization into the create uh, aspect of Copilot to be able to build that document for you. But then next step from that as well, I know you like to present, maybe not just scroll through a Word document with a customer. There may be, a presentation that will go alongside it. So instead of, taking up massive amounts of your time to then build a presentation that will go alongside it, you can ask Copilot to do that now. Build me a presentation based on this proposal. And that brings us to a real key point. Copilot's a tool. So anything that's being created or being made with Copilot, if you've used any of the OpenAI, search engines at the moment, one thing to mention is it's a tool that's being used to create something. You still need to go in and review. It's not something that, okay, it's done now, let's send it straight away. It still needs that finesse of a human to go in there and read through that document and to make sure that Copilot has understood what you wanted and also produced something for you to use as well.
Yeah, I think the key is the co in Copilot. It isn't taking the wheel.
Yeah.
It's the assistant. It's helping you generate a really quality piece of work much more quickly. But you have to be the gatekeeper, right? The idea is that this is a tool that allows you to better serve your customers. And the examples you step through there, I mean, just imagine those steps without Copilot. You have a meeting, then
Yeah.
you make the summary, then you create a proposal, then you create a presentation to summarize your proposal, and then you feed all of that information to a solution architect, taking our own sort of working relationship as an example. That's a lot of time. But if you
Yep.
can do all of that in Copilot, you get really quality framework that you can put the finishing touches on and deliver it really quickly to such a high standard. But the point you make there about it being your assistant, giving you the bones of something but not the finished product, that's critically important. And you see the things online, right, about people using it to create a resume and it just gets something totally wrong, or a recipe and it just is all it's just fundamentally not quite right. So yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really important thing to keep in mind, particularly in a professional setting.
Yeah. 100%. And what we've just spoke through there is one of hundreds of scenarios,
Yeah.
where Copilot can help, or where Copilot can assist you in your day-to-day work. And I'm sure, now it is GA and customers are getting hold of it and able to use it. We're going to see more and more of these scenarios come out and be asked more and more how Copilot can help us, or help an organization in the future. I think that kind of brings us on to, a very next logical step around, its availability and cost.
Hmm.
So I just mentioned now that it is generally available. So Copilot is, available to the public now. There are some caveats, one of those being a 300 seat minimum. So even if you're an organization of 20 people, the only way you're going to get access to Copilot is buying 300 of those licenses
Mm,
and sitting them in your tenant. And for the cost, it's around $30 per user per month, and that's an add-on license. No matter if you're E3, E5, E1, it's going to be an add-on license for you.
yeah. Yeah, the $30 is interesting, isn't it? Because when I saw that for the first time, I thought, okay, E5 is pitched as the all-encompassing license. That's about $60. This is $30 as an add-on. That seems really steep. And that was my
Yeah.
initial reaction. What's very interesting though is when I talk to a lot of our large customers, the reaction's a bit different, to be honest. I think in their mind, their budgets have shifted slightly post-COVID. If you think about office space, travel, there are certain areas of budget that have been reallocated recently. So yes, it is standalone, quite an expensive thing, but if it's going to add the amount of value that we've been talking about, it actually doesn't sound like that heavy a lift. I can't speak for every customer or company, of course. I'm sure there are some that get sticker shock from that $30, but when you look at it in the round and you look at it, through the frame of where we are in today's working world and working method, it seems to be getting quite well received. And I guess time will tell. When Microsoft put their results out and give the stats over time, we'll really see if that's the right price or not.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one thing that will help Microsoft is if those features and capabilities keep growing.
Yeah, yeah,
As we've seen with Team Phone and pretty much everything that Microsoft create, the feature capabilities, expand over time. They don't shrink.
yeah.
So as long as we see that, I think it's definitely viable that it will be in a lot of tenants around the world. Sure.
Agreed.
Well, I think that's a nice place to end the webinar there. Just to kind of bring that back full circle, Copilot is something new that's now hitting tenants and being able to be used. It's a tool that customers are going to be able to utilize just alongside their normal working day, going to be able to create documents a lot faster, going to be able to move through dealing with customers or with menial tasks a lot easier as well. And I think that Microsoft are going to build that product up and offer a lot more functionality to Copilot as we move on. One last thing to mention, as I said before, this is the last webinar in our series of our 6-part series. Just to mention, there are a new season coming of webinars, so we'll be looking to do those in January time. So, Michael, thank you very much for coming on and talking us through some of your expertise or customers' engagements. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Zach. It was a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.